I felt humiliated by my wife, a successful top executive in a major company, for years. In response, I sought revenge by cheating on her with 2 women simultaneously. Now, I feel like an alpha male. Aiden sat quietly in the corner of the lavish corporate gala, his gaze fixed on his wife, Kelly, as she mingled with ease among the who's who of the business world. She was a vision of confidence and grace, the CEO of a leading tech company, admired and respected by all. Aiden, however, felt like a fish out of water in these settings, his modest background in education a stark contrast to the glitz and glamour that now surrounded him. He sipped his drink, trying to blend into the background, but the disparity between him and the rest of the guests was painfully apparent. He overheard snippets of conversations about million-dollar deals and groundbreaking innovations, topics he had little insight into. Aiden's role as a high school history teacher seemed inconsequential in this world of power and prestige. Kelly, noticing his discomfort, made her way over to him, her smile bright but eyes filled with concern. "Are you okay, Aiden?" she asked, her hand finding his. "I'm fine," Aiden replied, forcing a smile. "Just not my scene, you know." Kelly nodded, understandingly. "I know this isn't easy for you. But it means a lot to me that you're here." Aiden nodded, his smile fading as soon as she turned to greet another colleague. He couldn't shake off the feeling of inadequacy that clung to him like a shadow in these gatherings. He was proud of Kelly's achievements, but he couldn't help feeling diminished by her success. As the evening wore on, Aiden found himself alone again, his mind wandering to the countless times he had felt overlooked and undervalued in these settings. He remembered the condescending looks, the patronizing questions about his career, and the subtle jabs at his quaint job. It wasn't just the outsiders who made him feel this way. Sometimes, he caught similar sentiments in Kelly's offhand remarks, although she always insisted she meant no harm. Driving home later that night, the silence in the car was heavy. Aiden's thoughts were a turbulent sea of resentment and hurt. He loved Kelly, but he couldn't escape the feeling that in her world, he would always be second best, an accessory to her success. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, Aiden's mind raced with thoughts of revenge. Not against Kelly directly, but against the world that made him feel so small. An idea began to form, reckless and fueled by a desire to assert his own worth. He thought of seeking solace in the arms of another woman, no, 2 women, to prove to himself that he was more than just Kelly's husband, that he too could command attention and desire. It was a thought that should have horrified him, but in the darkness of their bedroom, as Kelly's soft breathing filled the space beside him, it felt like the only way to reclaim a part of himself he felt he had lost. The days following the gala were a blur for Aiden. He carried out his duties as a history teacher with a mechanical diligence, his mind constantly drifting back to that night. The seed of his reckless plan germinated in his thoughts, watered by his growing sense of invisibility in Kelly's world. Each time Kelly spoke of her work, Aiden felt the chasm between them widen. Her world was one of high-stakes decisions and glamorous events, while his was grounded in lesson plans and grading papers. The disparity gnawed at him, feeding his resolve to act on his impulse. Aiden began to spend more time on social media, initially as a distraction. It wasn't long before he stumbled upon the profiles of 2 women, Maya and Elise, who seemed worlds apart from the life he knew. They were carefree, adventurous, and, most importantly, they knew nothing of his wife or her towering success. He started chatting with them, initially under the guise of friendship. But as their conversations grew more frequent, Aiden felt a thrill he hadn't experienced in years. Here, in this digital realm, he was just Aiden, unshackled from his identity as Kelly's husband. He basked in the attention Maya and Elise gave him, attention that was devoid of any preconceived notions about his worth. Aiden's interactions with Maya and Elise quickly escalated. They were both intrigued by his charm and wit, qualities that had been overshadowed in his marriage. Aiden planned a discreet meeting with them, convincing himself that it was just to feel alive again, to prove to himself that he could be desirable and powerful in his own right. The day of the meeting, Aiden was a bundle of nerves. He told Kelly he had an educators' conference to attend in the city, a lie that slipped out more easily than he had expected. She wished him luck, her mind preoccupied with her own pressing work commitments. In a quaint downtown cafe, Aiden met Maya and Elise. They were both vivacious and exuberant, a stark contrast to the serious, business-oriented world he had become accustomed to. As they chatted and laughed, Aiden felt a sense of liberation. Here, he was not in Kelly's shadow, he was the center of attention, the one being admired. However, beneath the veneer of excitement, there was a persistent pang of guilt. A part of him recognized the folly of his actions, the betrayal of the trust Kelly had in him. But this voice was drowned out by the louder one that urged him to reclaim his lost sense of self, to indulge in this newfound validation. As the evening wore on, Aiden found himself increasingly entangled in the web of his own deception. The more he interacted with Maya and Elise, the more he craved their admiration. It was a dangerous game he was playing, one that threatened to shatter the stable life he had with Kelly. Yet, in those moments, Aiden felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of control and worth, albeit in a world built on lies and secrets. The irony of seeking empowerment through deception was lost on him, as he plunged deeper into this duplicitous escapade. Aiden's double life began to take shape with a dangerous allure. His meetings with Maya and Elise became more frequent, each encounter more daring than the last. He crafted an intricate web of lies to conceal his activities from Kelly, citing extra tutoring sessions and school projects as cover for his escapades. The initial guilt that had pricked his conscience gradually dulled, overshadowed by the intoxicating rush of his secret liaisons. In the company of Maya and Elise, Aiden felt a sense of validation he had long craved. They laughed at his jokes, marveled at his stories, and looked at him with a desire he hadn't seen in years. He reveled in this newfound attention, basking in the glow of being desired for who he was, not for who he was married to. But as his affair deepened, so did the complexity of his deception. Aiden found himself juggling multiple lies, struggling to keep his story straight. The thrill of the affair was tinged with the constant fear of being discovered. He began to notice the strain of his duplicity in his interactions with Kelly. Conversations became strained, and he often found himself distant and preoccupied. Kelly, absorbed in her demanding role, sensed a change in Aiden but attributed it to work stress. She made efforts to connect, suggesting weekend getaways and date nights, but Aiden's mind was elsewhere. The divide between them widened, an invisible barrier fueled by Aiden's infidelity. Meanwhile, the dynamics with Maya and Elise started to shift. What had begun as casual flings gradually evolved into more demanding relationships. Maya, with her free-spirited nature, began to seek more of Aiden's time, while Elise's fascination started to turn into a deeper attachment. Aiden found himself entwined in not just one, but two additional relationships, each requiring more energy and time to maintain. The reality of his situation began to dawn on Aiden. He was living a life far removed from his values, a life of lies and deceit. Yet, the thought of ending the affairs filled him with dread. He feared losing the sense of empowerment he had derived from them. The affair had become a drug, and he was hopelessly addicted. As Aiden's secret life grew more intricate, so did the risk of discovery. He started to make mistakes, a forgotten alibi, a text message not carefully hidden. The foundation of his double life was built on sand, and it was only a matter of time before it started to crumble. One evening, as Aiden returned home from another tryst, he found Kelly waiting for him, her expression a mix of confusion and concern. She had found a receipt for a hotel room in his coat pocket, a room booked for a day he had claimed to be at a school seminar. Aiden stood frozen, the walls of his carefully constructed world closing in. The look in Kelly's eyes, a blend of hurt and disbelief, pierced through the veil of his deception. The moment he had dreaded had arrived, and the reality of his actions hit him with the full force of a tidal wave. The silence in the room was deafening as Kelly held the hotel receipt, her eyes searching Aiden's for an explanation. Aiden's heart pounded in his chest, his mind racing for a way out, but he knew there was no escaping the truth. The weight of his betrayal hung heavily in the air, suffocating him with guilt and shame. Aiden, what is this? Kelly's voice was a fragile whisper, laced with pain. He could see the trust they had built over the years crumbling in her eyes. I don't know how to explain, Aiden stammered, his voice barely audible. The lies he had so carefully woven now strangled him, leaving him gasping for air. Kelly's expression hardened as she pieced together the evidence of his infidelity. Is there someone else? She asked, her voice steadier but colder. Aiden's silence was answer enough. The room seemed to spin around him as he confessed to the affair with Maya and Elise. With each word, he felt as if he was tearing a piece of their life together, irreparably damaging something beautiful they had built. Kelly listened in stunned silence, her face a mask of hurt and disbelief. The man she had loved and trusted, the man she had shared her life with, had become a stranger, his actions alien and incomprehensible. As the reality of Aiden's betrayal sank in, a torrent of emotions overwhelmed Kelly. Anger, sadness, disbelief, and a profound sense of loss washed over her. She had been so engrossed in her career, so confident in their love and trust, that she had failed to see the signs of his unhappiness. Aiden watched helplessly as tears streamed down Kelly's face. He reached out to her, but she recoiled from his touch, her body trembling with a mixture of rage and sorrow. How could you do this to us? She asked, her voice breaking. Aiden had no answers. The excuses that had once seemed justifiable now sounded hollow and selfish. He had embarked on this path seeking validation and power, but all he had found was destruction and loss. The following days were a blur of heartache and regret. Kelly moved to stay with a friend, needing space to process the betrayal. Aiden was left alone in their home, each room echoing with memories of their life together, now tainted by his actions. As he grappled with the consequences of his actions, Aiden realized the magnitude of his folly. He had risked everything for a fleeting sense of superiority, jeopardizing the most important relationship in his life. The women he had sought solace with were now just painful reminders of his mistake. In the solitude of his home, Aiden began to reflect on his actions. He understood that his insecurities and jealousy had driven him to sabotage his marriage. The empowerment he had sought through the affair was nothing but a mirage, leaving him emptier than before. The chapter closes with Aiden grappling with the harsh reality of his actions. He realizes the need to confront his insecurities and make amends, although he is unsure if the damage done to his marriage can ever be repaired. The once strong and loving relationship with Kelly now lay in ruins, a testament to the destructive power of unaddressed insecurities and misguided revenge. The days turned into weeks, and the chasm between Aiden and Kelly grew wider and deeper. The house they once filled with laughter and love now stood as a somber monument to their fractured relationship. Aiden, who had once sought an escape from feeling overshadowed, now found himself engulfed in a shadow of remorse and longing. Kelly, after spending time away to reflect, returned to the house not as a partner, but as an individual seeking closure. She had spent countless nights wrestling with her emotions, trying to understand how their love had unraveled so dramatically. The pain of betrayal was sharp, but it had gradually given way to a realization that their paths had irreversibly diverged. When they finally sat down to talk, the air was thick with a mix of sadness and resignation. Aiden looked at Kelly, seeing not just the woman he had hurt, but also the strength and grace with which she had handled the aftermath of his betrayal. I've thought a lot about us, Kelly began, her voice steady but tinged with sadness. And as much as it hurts, I don't think we can go back to how things were. Aiden nodded, his throat tight with emotion. I know I've hurt you beyond repair, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. And I'll always regret that. I don't expect forgiveness or a second chance. I just want you to know how truly sorry I am. They spoke for hours, revisiting the memories of their life together. They laughed and cried, mourning the loss of what they had built. But beneath the sorrow lay a mutual understanding that their journey together had reached its end. The decision to divorce, though heart-wrenching, came as a mutual agreement. It was a painful but necessary step towards healing and moving forward. As they navigated the process, they did so with respect and civility, a testament to the love and friendship that had once been the foundation of their relationship. Aiden moved out of their home, taking with him not just his belongings but a heavy heart filled with regret. The affair, which had started as a misguided quest for validation, had cost him the most important person in his life. He realized that true strength lay not in seeking validation from others but in confronting one's insecurities and flaws. Kelly, on the other hand, embarked on a journey of self-discovery. The end of her marriage was a turning point, prompting her to reevaluate her priorities and the balance between her personal and professional life. She found solace in her work but also made a conscious effort to connect more deeply with friends and family. The story concludes with Aiden and Kelly moving forward separately, each carrying lessons from their past. Aiden sought therapy to address his insecurities and vowed to never let his ego drive his actions again. Kelly learned the importance of communication and vulnerability in relationships. Their love story had ended, not with a dramatic climax, but with a quiet acceptance that some paths are meant to diverge. The final chapter of their marriage closed with a signature on the divorce papers, but it opened new chapters for them individually, chapters of growth, understanding, and hope for the future.